Hello and welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Jenny and I'm joined from Hong Kong by my co-host and sister Heather. Say hello, dude.
Hello, everyone.
Today we are discussing Series 2, Episode 7 and the 1982 Christmas special, Diamonds Are for Heather. So get some of this gut rock down your neck and let's get started. It's Christmas 1982, and this year brought along a few notable events. It would be the first time the Queen's Christmas broadcast would come from the library of the Windsor Castle, and this year marked the 50th anniversary of the Christmas broadcast by King George V, by radio at the time, by the way, not TV. A few notable entertainment bits about 1982. The Christmas number one was Save Your Love by Rene and Renato. And the number one movie at the UK box office was E.T., which was also the highest grossing movie of 1982. I don't think we're too surprised about that. Many of the same shows from 1981 would also air this Christmas. We'll have more Jim'll Fix It, unfortunately, more Paul Daniels' Magic Show, a Christmas special from the two Ronnies over on the BBC. On ITV, viewers could enjoy Bruce Forsyth's Play Your Cards Right and Chaz and Dave's Christmas Knees Up. But where did Only Fools and Horses fit in this year?
Well, this episode aired on the BBC at 7:55 p.m. on Thursday, December 30th, 1982. Viewing figures were 9.3 million for this episode, which is up from the 7.5 million viewers we had for Christmas Crackers. Definitely a better time slot and perhaps a better date. Diamonds Are for Heather, for me, would be aired right after Top of the Pops and be followed by Allo Allo. Interestingly, this episode was not actually the only dose of Only Fools and Horses viewers would get this Christmas. The series was invited to appear as part of The Funny Side of Christmas, which was a TV special presented by comedian Frank Mayor and featured sketches from popular BBC comedies at the time. So this show aired on December 27th at 8:05 p.m. and attracted 7.5 million viewers. So there is actually an 8-minute short called Christmas Trees, which I haven't actually seen, but Jenny has. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about it, dude.
Yeah, sure. So I hadn't seen it either until we started recording the podcast. So years and years of watching the show, and I didn't know it existed either. So Christmas Trees was shot over 3 days, starting November 10th, 1982. And the sketch is actually pretty cool, and it's entirely shot in the market, Islington Chapel Market, to be precise, where Dell is trying to sell telescopic Christmas trees to a crowd of punters. So we get plenty of fly pitching, which we've not gotten much of in the series yet. So this would probably be the longest amount of fly pitching scenes that we've actually had so far in the show. So the plot basically is Dell convinces Rodney to give a tree to the church that's visible from the market. And then he tries to sell the trees as being endorsed by the Church of England, which is an excellent marketing tactic. And we also get a great appearance here by John Pennington, who is the vicar, who we will know stars as the vicar in Strained Relations. So he's actually the same vicar. And we also get to see Sid again, and he's running like an outdoor food stand, which is funny. Grandad pops down the market to drop off a cold flask of coffee and get himself a wagon wheel. So yeah, that's pretty much the basic plot.
It's
funny. It's a good little short. It's definitely worth a watch. It's not super easy to find. I watched it on a Facebook clip.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out because I didn't get a chance to watch that. So back to Diamonds Are for Heather. Do you have any trivia about this episode before we start the episode breakdown, dude?
Yeah, sure. Let's do the trivia. So this Christmas season, Sullivan took the idea for the Christmas special in a completely different direction. He wanted to focus on the idea that Dell really did want to settle down and get married, have a family of his own, which we'd only really seen hinted at before in the second time around with Pauline. The character of Heather could not have been more different to Pauline. She is kind and sweet and not intentionally manipulative, but Heather was played by Rosalind Lloyd, who had lots of nice things to say about Ray Butt and David Jason. She actually met up with Jason beforehand to develop the chemistry and said, "I give full credit to David Jason for helping me play Heather to the best of my ability. His generosity of spirit was second to none, and rehearsals at the church hall in Cheswick were a joy." Unlike Christmas Crackers, Diamonds Are for Heather was allocated a full budget, which allowed extensive location shooting, which was done over a week starting November 30th. And this episode was aired just a month after A Touch of Glass.
It's all right, I made the same mistake last time.
Not the Fawlty Towers episode, A Touch of Glass. Just easy to get them mixed up.
Yes.
But the production was done much closer to the air date, but not in the 5 days that Christmas Crackers. So the studio scenes were shot in front of a live studio audience this time on Monday, the 20th of December. So again, close to the date, but they didn't have to rush it in 5 days like they did with Christmas Crackers. And I think we can see a pretty significant difference. So that's all we have for now, but let's do the rankings, dude.
Okay, sure, let's do that. So if you're new here, firstly, we'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast. And we release a new episode every Saturday. Each week, we reveal and compare our rankings for the episode. So prior to recording the entire podcast, we both independently ranked all 64 episodes. So I am really curious to hear what your ranking is for this episode, dude.
You are? Okay. Okay, we'll do me first then. So my ranking is number 58.
Okay. That's not that surprising, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear mine and then we can discuss?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay,
What's
so my ranking for this episode is 60 out of 64.
Ta-da! You have an IMDb match again.
Yes. Look at me matching with IMDb.
Imagine if IMDb rankings aren't even real, they're just yours. But it looks at the moment like
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, that's pretty consistent. We're all within the space of 2 rankings, so we're all close.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much we really need to say about fans of the show. I think most fans of the show would rank this episode pretty low. I mean, I'm sure there are always exceptions, but I think for me, it's just this episode, in my opinion, is not fun.
Yeah, it's not super fun. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's like something I want from like first of all, it's a Christmas special, which usually Christmas specials are like the most fun episodes. And then the second thing is it's not even centered around Christmas, not really. I mean, we'll talk about it later when you we talk about the episode breakdown, but the first time you even know anything about it being Christmas is like the last 2 scenes, because in the flat the tree is up. And then it ends on a really somber note. And it's mostly about a character that we only meet this one time and we never meet again.
Yeah, I mean, those are all fair observations, and I think that's what a lot of people agree with. But again, like, you could argue that if you just look at the 2 Christmas specials so far and imagine that none of the others have been made in the future, all we're seeing with the Christmas specials at the moment is John Sullivan experimenting with different styles of Christmas specials. Christmas Crackers did not really go very well, but I'm sure he would have said that he felt rushed to write that. And it ended up being more sketch-like. This is so different to Christmas Crackers. They're very different episodes. So this time he's trying to take it in a more serious direction, and we can see the very beginnings of the serious Only Fools and Horses episodes where things are a little bit more sad and tense being hinted at in this episode. And it's not bad to see that beginning. I just think within its context now, like, you're thinking of, the future Christmas specials and like comparing them back with this one. It's a shame because this one just doesn't seem like a fun episode to put on to feel Christmassy and like feel nostalgic, but in its own right, it wasn't probably that bad at the time. And watching it back, I found some funny moments in it. Like,
I mean, yeah, I really tried to like it, because this is one of the few episodes I think I feel very similarly about when I was a kid, and now I still feel the same way. Like, it's not one that I would put on ever by choice. Like, if I'm sort of, binging the whole series, it'll be on, but it's not one that I'd sort of sit down excited to watch.
No.
To, lift my spirits.
No. Well, I remember Mom and Dad had it on tape. Do you remember? They had it recorded, but we never watched it.
Yeah, and I think I used to like the idea of this episode because obviously when you're a kid, my name is in the title. So of course I liked that about it. But other than that, there's not really anything I can... Well, no, there is one thing, which again I'll say for the episode breakdown, that I like about this episode. But other than that...
Well, yeah, so we already did IMDb, but I'll just make a note, just because this is a callback to our Christmas Crackers episode. There's another great review on IMDb by Phantom Tollbooth. So this person seems to do just really good Christmas special reviews, and I have not looked ahead to see if he's done one for or they have done one for every year, but I kind of hope they have. So if you want to read it, if anyone wants to go read it, it actually helps because it pulls positives from every time. Like the reviews are really good at pulling the positives out. And in this case, points out the really good growth of character of Del as some of the subtle messages and that start to show how good the writing of John Sullivan is in this episode. So there's definitely positives we can draw from it.
Oh, yeah.
Even though we both ranked it low, again, like we're not saying things are bad. And then some people probably really love, there's probably huge fans of every episode. It fell down low for us because we both don't like to rewatch this one. But we'll still break it down now and go over and pull out all the positives as well while we go through.
Yeah, of course, we'll give that a go. So, okay, dude, if you've got anything else to say, we can move on to the episode breakdown. You want to get going?
Yeah, let's do that. This episode begins at the Nag's Head, and it's Spanish night. So immediately we see a crowded bar with lots of people enjoying the live music. We see Del, Rodney, and Grandad seated at their table. Del does not look happy. Evidently, Rodney bought them tickets to this event for $5, and he'd hoped they'd be having a great time. Del says he went round to Lenny Norris's house earlier, and he saw him happy with his wife and a baby, and he says,
"He's got a real family. And what have I got?
You got us.
Yeah, I thought of that. That is when I left.
While Del is away from the table, Grandad reveals that the woman Del was seeing,
Her with the nose.
has given him the old heave-ho. So Rodney surmises that Del must be upset because he went out and lumbered himself with 2 tons of Ookie Purcell that he was hoping to sell to her dad. So when Del returns to the table, Rodney suggests that they have a sing-along to cheer themselves up, which Del agrees to, but Rodney starts to sing the washing line song, and this upsets Del.
All together! We're gonna hang out the washing on the sink.
So before I mention him, because Enrico saunters over at this time, the main singer of the band is Enrico, and he was played by John Moreno. Do you recognize him, dude?
No.
He's in one of your favorite James Bond movies.
Oh, okay. So that must mean he's in For Your Eyes Only.
He's
because
in For Your
that's
Eyes
a James
Only.
Bond movie that you know as well as I do. And one that we loved growing up watching. Oh, God.
I'll
who
give
is
you a
he in
clue.
that?
The snow is better at Eansbrook.
Oh, is he? He's Ferrari.
Yeah.
Ferrara.
Luigi Ferrara. Yeah.
That's it. Oh, I did not know. Yeah. Oh, my God. He doesn't look anything like him.
No,
but
he
that
doesn't.
explains his flair for accents.
I
guess.
didn't know that either. That's why I had to put that in, because it was funny. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Del decides to cheer himself up by asking Enrico to sing Old Shep. Enrico protests.
Senor, it's not possible to sing the old Shep song.
Then he switches to a strong Cockney accent, which is really funny.
Look, leave it out, will you, Del boy? I've got a living to earn. That's a killer of a song.
But Del is insistent, stands up and gives him a menacing look, which Enrico immediately bursts into song.
When I was a lad.
So a little bit about Old Shep, in case anyone does love this song as much as Del, because we do see this as a consistent part of Del's character. He says,
That is my most favourite song about a dog, that is, you know.
And Old Shep appears again in Modern Men, which is pretty far away when it's the hold music on Del's phone. We actually failed to mention that in Long Legs of the Law, Old Shep is playing in Sid's Cafe. We forgot to mention that.
Oh, I don't even know if I noticed. Maybe
Yeah,
that's why
I don't know if I ever
forgot to
noticed
mention
either,
it.
but it's just a popular trivia. And then there's also a reference in Rock and Chips because a young Del is listening to Old Shep in the bar. So Old Shep was originally released all the way back in 1935, composed by American country music legend Red Foley, with the lyrics written by Willis Arthur. The dog the song was written about was a German shepherd called Hoover. The song has been covered and re-released many times over the years, with perhaps one of the most notable artists being Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I heard the song.
He
from
released a
Elvis
cover
Presley.
version in 1956, but he actually won a singing competition at age 10 by singing Old Shep. Despite its popularity, this version of Old Shep by Enrico does in fact clear the Nag's Head, and everyone is unhappy, except for Del. Rodney and Grandad got bored and annoyed, and while sticking up for the song, Del notices Heather sitting at the bar alone. And when he smiles at her, she smiles back, so he takes that as a green light, and he heads over to the bar to talk to her. Should I just finish this scene before I ask you if you have any
Yeah,
notes?
you can. Yeah, I've got some notes, but
So
yeah.
I feel like I'm talking for so much.
No, it's okay.
So Del starts the conversation talking about Old Shep, and Heather asks,
Did you have an old dog?
Oh, I've had many old dogs in my time.
This is pointed out as in the Phantom Toll Booth review, where it says this is an example of Del trying to amend his personality to be more respectful of women when they're present. So we see it's quite natural for him to just say things like that because he's always around the guys, but like, you know, he does have to try when he's around the women. So he continues to chat to Heather. He asks her out quite quickly, and they discuss that Del could drop her off at home in Brixton. You remember that we stayed in Brixton recently?
Yes, we did when we went back to the UK in 2023.
Yeah. So I didn't see Heather though. I don't know.
Well, you were with Heather.
Yeah. Here we get an example of Del perhaps trying to embellish his line of work to make him sound better. So this is a good little reference because you can watch dates and then go all the way back to this and see.
I'm an importer, exporter of quality merchandise.
And Heather finds it fascinating. And Del says,
I tell you what, if you're interested, I've got some very cheap washing powder.
Then Heather looks very longingly at Del when he says that. So
yeah, I know that look
like,
she gives him at the end. It's like he's hypnotized her or something.
Yeah, but I think that's
crazy look.
They do that a couple times throughout the episode. So she's clearly been told to show that she's very into Del quite quickly. Like the actress has been told to make that very clear. So that's the end of the scene. Do you have some notes on that, dude?
Yeah, I do. So I'll try and go through these as quickly as possible. So the first thing I wrote was the most stereotypical Spanish night ever. Literally had every cliche that they could possibly think of. And I think it's interesting to start a Christmas episode with a Spanish night. Of course, this is meant to be before Christmas because obviously they're leading up to Christmas in the episode. But I just think that's really funny, the way that, you know, the stereotypes of everything that's typically Spanish.
Are you allowed to do that now? Like have Spanish night?
I think for European stuff, probably, yeah. I think European stuff is you can still probably do the stereotypical stuff. I just said it's interesting that Del seems to be pining for a child at the beginning of the episode, which is something we haven't ever heard Del mention, I don't think, until this point. Mm-mm. We've heard him mention him pining for a love life, but not a child. It sounded like he, you know, was looking at the family and going, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Grandad described the woman as you said, her with the nose, because it's, again, continuing with they always identify women by one physical attribute, or not even just women, I think people. They're always
people.
Like, in with the air, her with the leg, you know, they do it like that.
Yeah.
I thought Grandad's guilty, don't blame me, Del Boy face is funny when he looks over when he realizes that he's told Rodney.
I love that face.
Leonard Pierce's facial expressions, they're great. I also said that it's interesting that people are afraid of Del. I mentioned this, I think, in another episode, but the fact that he just has to get in his face and go, sing old ship. And then he like does it straight away. He's like, what does he think Del's going to do? Is Del, you know, is that hard man reputation that Del's got? Because surely he wouldn't hit him in the face just because he refused to sing Old Chef. I don't know. Maybe he would. Yeah. I also thought it was really funny, the cliche, I said, of everyone knowing how to play a song instantly when it's requested. The guitar player like straight away joins in the right key and everything, which is funny. And I also put, imagine leaving a pub just because one song started that you didn't like after you paid £5 to get in. Well, you like the entire pub clears out, and like at the very beginning of the song as well. This is like the first like couple of bars, and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm off." And it's, in theory, they've all paid to be there, which is quite funny. You know, of course, that in real life, I think people would just listen to that song and go, "Oh, it's not my favorite," and wait till it's over and then request something else. Oh, I also put maybe in reality all the drunks in the pub would have started booing. That's more in keeping, I think, with sort of British culture. Everyone would have been like, oh, no, boring. Like, don't do that.
Doesn't the crowd groan? I can't remember.
I don't even think it's noticeable if they do. They just seem to all start leaving while Del's sitting there, like, enjoying it. So,
okay, well, it says here in the script, the regular moan with disapproval from the regulars as they realise what song it is. So I suppose it was supposed to be hinted that he does this every time. I
mean, maybe he does. Yeah, maybe that's like everyone's used to Del requesting
regular.
Everyone's too afraid of Del to say anything. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
I also put a really nice touch. It's such a subtle thing, but this is one of the reasons I love Only Fools and Horses. When Del goes over to talk to Heather and he's poured Rodney's drink, into his own cup and taken the jug, Grandad picks up his drink seeing that Rodney might be eyeing it and like tries to down it, just like slightly almost off screen, which again, I just love that, that they carried on that interaction even though it's not the focus. I also love the way that Del asks if he can sit down, where he says,
Do you mind if I park my bot?
I also wonder, is this the first time we hear Del's stereotypical chat-up line?
Sorry, what did you say your name was?
Heather.
Heather, that's a beautiful name, that, isn't it? Heather. It's one of my most favourite names, that, Heather.
Yeah, maybe.
Have we heard that before?
Yeah, because has he hit on anyone else to this point?
I don't think so. Because he never said to Pauline, obviously. And that's the only other woman we've sort of seen him with.
Because he wasn't meeting Pauline for the first time, was he? I know that...
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll have to review back on that. But I think you're right. I think because I mentioned the whole him embellishing his line of work. But yeah, is this the first time that he says, oh, that's my most favourite name, which he always says to every woman?
Yeah, he always says about every single woman, in the future. So, and then I just put at the end, Del always invading women's personal space. He always gets a bit too close. But again, sign of the times, I guess. And again, Del's character, he's very confident. So, yeah, that's all I had for that scene.
Okay, all right, let's move on then. So we cut to the tenement and we see/hear really Del and Heather arriving home late to Heather's flat. So there's no lights in the stairwell. They both comment on how the flat is not very nice when they walk in. And we do see Del trip on the step here, so they're setting up that joke. So we basically get the impression that Heather doesn't live in the nicest or fanciest of places. But this would have been pretty typical, I would think, for somebody in her position. So while Heather's getting the drinks, we see that Del sort of hugs her from behind. So we get the impression that the date's going well. As the audience, we're thinking, oh, they like each other. Then suddenly a big tall man enters the room, which gives Del a bit of a shock. And then Heather says,
Sorry I'm late, love. Del took me on to a nightclub.
It's only being friendly, John.
His body language is, he's like edgy and nervous. But Heather lets Del know that Brian is the babysitter. So, Brian was played by Roger Brierley, who has played small parts in lots of TV shows and movies. He's got a very distinctive look. Del says he's a bit long in the tooth for university, and he says,
I'm a mature student.
Oh, cool. Here, my brother went to university.
Oh, really? What was he reading?
God knows. Mayfair and Penthouse, knowing him.
So we see a bit of an educational gap here. There's a funny line here where Heather says, I hope he didn't get on your nerves too much.
No. I've got to get used to people like him.
No, I meant the baby.
Then as Brian leaves, she repeats the mind the step joke. Set up again for Del falling down the stairs at the end of the scene. After Brian leaves, Del says to Heather that she didn't tell him that she had a baby, which is quite surprising. I put here in my notes. They spent the whole evening together. She didn't mention that she had a kid at home and that she had a babysitter or anything. So
yeah, you'd think it'd be one of the first things that you'd mention.
Yeah, I mean, this is all just artistic license because obviously they have to set this up in this scene and they don't want to do it in a nightclub. So she says there's a picture of him on the mantelpiece and Del goes over and grabs the picture of Vic. So interesting fact about that picture, that's a photo of Martin Shardlow, who it was put in as a surprise joke for David Jason because Martin Shardlow was the director of in all the Series 1 episodes except for Christmas Crackers.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
That's just a joke for Adele. So yeah, I put a little note here. Why would you keep a photo of your estranged husband on the mantelpiece? I guess because for the kid.
I have a different thought. I think it's because she still loves him. I mean, that's evident from what happens in the rest of the episode. So I think that's probably why she put it there and kept it there.
Yeah, it is just, in reality, like, I personally don't think that if I broke up with someone that I would keep a photo of them that big and prominent on the mantelpiece, but yeah. Obviously,
no, I don't think I would either. But yeah, I mean, if she's still like madly in love with him, and as you say, he's the father of her child, so she has kind of got a reason to keep it around if anyone asked, other than the fact that she might still be in love with him. So
yeah, there's another reference here to the super high unemployment at the time where Heather said
he walked out of here one morning, said he was popping down the job centre to sign on. That was 18 months ago.
Well, the way things are, he could still be queuing.
I thought that was a funny line. We established that Vic is gone, and Heather says she doesn't care, so it really does make it sound like the path is clear. She quickly accepts Del's offer to go out for the day, and she's especially happy when she finds out that Del also means with Darren. They go to kiss, it goes a little bit wrong, but you can definitely tell that they like each other. And the scene ends with Heather forgetting to remind Del to mind the step because she's so mesmerized, so he falls down the stairs off screen. Rosalind Lloyd said, the actress that played Heather, that the audience reaction to the mind the step joke was very positive. She always remembers that being her like line, and everyone found that really funny. So that's the end of the scene. Do you have any other notes, dude?
Yeah, I have a really crazy note that I'm just like, what the fuck? The landlord took the bulb out. And you were okay with that. How expensive were light bulbs that you couldn't replace it?
Well, maybe if it's in the tenement, she couldn't reach it, and it's a bit dangerous.
But it's such an important light. Like, it's a light for the stairs. I mean, that is like so important. That's like so dangerous to not have one. Like, she didn't sound like, you know, she was that bothered that it was gone, and she was like, oh yeah, the landlord's like energy conscious. I was just like, no, that is ridiculous. That is crazy that there's no light bulb in the stairwell, and you're just like, okay. Yeah, I said that first of all, she called the toddler a baby.
Yeah.
And then when Del said, oh, you got a baby, and then she went, oh, he's not a baby. I'm like, you just called him a baby. That just annoyed me a little bit. So I put the Vic guy sounds like a twat. But one of the things that I noticed that the sort of I guess the reaction from Del or David Jason's acting when she did that sort of speech on the couch where she ended with,
You got a baby now, Vic. Isn't it time you sorted yourself out?
And then she sort of shook it off a little bit. And then Del got up almost immediately and was like, well, I've got to go. And I felt like that was almost a hint at what was to come in the episode, because Del kind of could tell that she still was, you know, into him from that, because who wouldn't think that based on the way she talked about him, even though she said she didn't care. I thought that, again, because I know what happens later in the episode and I look at this stuff differently now, I think she was pretty out of line here compared, like, considering what she says to Del later. Like you said, she seemed fine, that he came up and kissed her from behind. Yep. She was going to kiss him goodnight. She seems really interested in having lunch with him. Like, if you felt like him, like about the same way as you do about a brother, there's no way you'd behave like that. So yeah, I'm sorry I'm ruining it for later, but yeah, that just annoyed me. Like, I think Heather's really leading Del on.
Yeah, I think I agree, because I think, like, yeah, we're painting a picture of Heather as a very likable character throughout the entire episode. She's painted as sweet, nice, like she likes Del, she laughs at the silly things he says, like she's being shown as somebody who isn't manipulative.
Yeah, I don't see her that way at all.
But now we know, because we know. But like we have to try to imagine that we're watching this without knowing that what she says at the end, which I agree with you is bad, but we'll come to that.
Yeah.
If you imagine you don't know that from Del's point of view, she's given all the green lights.
Yeah, absolutely.
But perhaps because she's young with a child and vulnerable and her husband left, like she's basically sinking into this fantasy that someone is like the perfect dad, husband figure, and she can rely on it. Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I'm programmed at this point to care about what happens to Del and not to her, because Del is the character I'm watching this for and I love. So, of course, you know, I see what she does from Del's perspective rather than hers. But yeah, of course, in reality, you could argue that Heather doesn't really understand what she's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, it might be interesting at this point. Well, maybe we'll come back to this later. I was going to say we could compare the character of Heather a little bit to the character of Raquel. Maybe we'll do that later. For now, let's cut to the montage. If you're ready. Okay, so the montage. So we have a nice memorable montage here. So this is something that a lot of people might remember from this episode.
This is the only thing I remembered from this episode.
Yeah, it might be the only thing you remember.
Because the song is so good.
Perhaps I should say that if anyone hasn't watched the episode much, they probably will remember that there's a montage in the middle, mostly because of the song.
Zoom!
But yeah, it's a montage designed to show that time has passed and the three of them have become very close, Heather, Del, and Darren. And as we discussed in our intro episode, this is one of Heather's favourite songs from the show. So Zoom was released by American band Fat Larry's Band and from their 1982 album Breaking Out. And it reached number 2 in the UK singles chart the month before this episode was recorded. So it really is perfect for this scene. The montage was filmed in a few varied locations outside of Ealing newsagents for the little boat ride scene. Actually,
I was going to say, this is where they blew their budget, isn't it?
Yeah, on that little machine. You're right. Those things were so expensive. I'm just kidding.
I meant the montage. Although they probably did have to reinforce it if Del was sitting in it, because I'm pretty sure they never let adults sit in those things.
Yeah, but Del, David Jason's not a big guy, so outside the Ealing newsagent, London Zoo and the London Planetarium for the scenes inside, and also on board the HMS Belfast. So Rosalind Lloyd said that filming the montage was very relaxed and fun. So I think you can see. I mean, I do like this montage. I love the bit.
I agree.
With the
it's my favourite
photos
part of the episode.
and the ice cream in Del's face is hilarious. I love that.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I said when I was younger, I used to think that this was all one day. And I used to think, God, they did a lot in one day.
Yeah. Well, maybe they did do all that in one day. Are they wearing different
that is
outfits?
a crazy long day if they did. No, because Del's wearing that hat in the ice cream photo.
Okay.
I mean, I suppose you could have taken it off earlier, but yeah, I think it's meant to be different days. I think. Because, yeah, that would be a very long day. There's actually one thing I wanted to mention, because this is done in so many shows, and I just wonder who did it first. The joke about taking a kid to the zoo and the animals start having sex in front of them and they have to hide it from them. I feel like that joke has been done in so many things.
Yeah.
Even just as like talking about it, like someone's like, oh, the monkey started doing something and we had to leave, or something like this, you know? Or people hiding it from their kids.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a very dated joke, yeah.
Yeah, it must have been done a lot of times. So that was, yeah. And then I also just said she seems really interested in Del romantically. I mean, after watching that montage, how could you think otherwise, you know, about Heather's intentions towards Del?
Yeah, I mean, she's going to kiss him in the planetarium when they get thrown out, so that's quite
And she's
funny.
letting him bond with her child in a fatherly way, which is also, again, I'll talk about that later, but yeah.
Yeah. Are you? Well, we can move on unless you have any other notes on the montage.
No, that's it. I just want to say I love the montage because I love the song.
Okay. So everybody's favourite scene is past, and we're now outside Nelson Mandela. So yeah, this goes back to what we were just saying. So Del is having a kickabout with little Darren, and we are given the impression here that they've grown very close. Time has passed, and Heather's not around, which means Del's looking after him by himself.
Yep.
So these scenes were back on the North Acton estate, which I think we can recognise from Go West Young Man.
Yes.
So we see Rodney's washing the van, and Grandad bumbles up with some shopping, which is a common thing when Grandad's outside. He's going shopping. Rodney and Grandad start making fun of Del for being childish. And Rodney gives us a bit of context of time here. So he says he's known Heather for 6 weeks. Plenty of time.
Yes. That must be how long the montage was meant to be.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, so we know that they met and then 6 weeks have passed and he's looking after Darren. That's quite a while for a little relationship to develop.
Yeah, I agree.
Del comes over.
Especially one that's not romantic.
Yeah. Del comes over and they're laughing at him, but it doesn't seem to bother him. So Rodney here points out that there's a Del and Heather sign in the van, which I think is another
that's
thing
ridiculous.
that people remember from this episode is that there's a little Del and Heather sign. Grandad has like an old-fashioned derogatory line here where he says,
Oh, I wouldn't let that bother you, Rodney.
Huh?
No, they most probably just think you're a puff.
sign of the times. Yeah, and that's all I had. You got anything else for that scene?
I'm sorry. The sign thing is ridiculous. Again, I'm thinking of it. If you are Heather, supposedly not interested in him in any way other than as a friend, and you let him do that, you let him put that in his car. Like, come on, this is ridiculous. Like, who would do that? And I just put also, Del always goes overboard in relationships.
Does, especially in the beginning.
Yes, he gets completely. But then again, in this situation, with the way Heather's being around him, I can understand why he thought they were, going somewhere and everything was okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could also address at this point that when Del is doing business, he is the same way, that he's gung-ho, like he goes in, jumps in with both feet, as we know. But when it comes to relationships, he allows himself to be emotionally vulnerable very quickly. Whereas in business, not so much, because it doesn't matter. Like, he's not as emotionally affected by business as he is by this. But his same personality trait of jumping the gun applies to his business transactions and his relationships.
And again, in this situation, Del, if I was Del, I would absolutely think everything was going, in a good direction as well, based on the way that Heather is towards him.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so let's cut back to the only scene that we get inside the Trotter flat. So the scene starts with Del getting ready in front of the mirror, and Rodney has a funny line here.
My earliest childhood recollection is of you standing in front of a mirror. Up until I was 4, I thought you was twins.
It's worth mentioning here that Del takes it as a compliment when Rodney says that he looks like a second-hand car trader. That goes back to what we discussed about the development of the character of Del and a lot of the aspects of second-hand car trade taken as a positive that John Sullivan knew within his own circle of friends. So because they look suave, and especially to somebody like Del, he would take that as a compliment.
Well, they've got the patter as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, they can sell you anything, and that's what Del prides himself on. So.
Absolutely, yeah. So Del doesn't let himself get bothered because he announces that tonight will be a very special night for him. And he floats the idea of Heather and Darren coming over for Christmas. This is the first mention of Christmas, right? And
yes. This is the first time we get it's Christmas at all in the episode.
Is the Christmas tree up in this scene?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so
it's in the background.
So we've seen that. So 6 weeks before, it wasn't going to be mentioned, was it? So Spanish Night was what, in like mid-November, I guess?
I guess it must have been, yeah.
But now we're rounding up towards the end of the episode and we're getting that it's Christmas now. So here we get to see Rodney's attitude towards Heather, and it's a fairly stark difference from his attitude towards Pauline. He likes Heather. Grandad appears to like Darren, and he says,
Oh, no, he's a good little kid.
but Del mentions Heather becoming Rodney's sister-in-law, and he changes his tune, yeah.
Do I want to come and live here with that noisy little brat, will she?
So this is where Del reveals that he's applied for a council house. He makes a very swift exit. He doesn't give Rodney and Grandad a chance to object.
Can I just correct that? They've applied for a council house, is what he says. Implying that Heather has also applied with him.
Are you sure?
We've applied for a council house.
Yep, he says we've applied for a council house. That's what he says.
I did not clock that, but interesting. Yeah. So maybe he thought he said that, but maybe Heather wasn't in on it. I don't know. Because that makes it sound like...
It wouldn't surprise me if she was, considering how much she's been leading him on the rest of the episode. Because I put like, I said like without Heather's consent, or have they discussed and decided to live together? Because if that's the case, that's even more like terrible what Heather does in the next scene.
It's true, yeah. So this is the night that Del's going to the Indian restaurant, right? So this leaves us, he leaves, and it leaves us just with the reactions of Rodney and Grandad. They're calm and a little sad and somber. And Rodney seems to be like okay with it, and he's like, yeah, I'll be okay. But then Grandad reminds him,
You seem to be forgetting something, Rodney. If Del Boy moves into his council gaff with his off-the-peg next to kin, who the hell's going to pay the rent, gas and electric in this place, eh?
reminder
point.
that they are actually still kept by Del, even though Rodney works with Del. Del does handle all the finances.
Yeah, I mean, they actually wouldn't be able to survive without Del. It's a very good point. Unless Rodney somehow managed to get a job that earned, anywhere near what Del was bringing in. But the likelihood, as you said, the climate that sort of set up in this era of Britain when there was no jobs, it would be almost impossible for them to support themselves without Del.
Yeah, and at this point, we haven't even really seen any exact examples of Del pays for everything and the others are kept, right? Like, we don't know that Grandad doesn't have a pension, or has he never mentioned a pension, has he?
No, I think the only time Grandad's mentioned anything about money was when he mentioned that he won a bet, which was in a losing streak. That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, he calls himself an old age pensioner.
I'm only an old age pensioner, Del Boy.
But yeah, I know Albert mentions his pension as a way that they sometimes pay the rent in the future. But yeah, I'm trying to think, because
we just say, tell me where your money's hidden, and Grandad says it's in a suitcase under my bed, meaning that he's got some money hidden somewhere.
Yeah, but maybe he doesn't get a pension. Yeah, because I'm thinking, like, when we get to healthy competition, we see there's the breakup of the partnership. But at no point have we really established how they pay their way. Like, does Del pay for everything, can keep some of Rodney's earnings to cover it? Grandad gets everything bought for him. So yeah. But anyway, this sort of establishes that if Del leaves, and yeah, it's a good point, what would happen? Would Del just leave Rodney and Grandad?
Well, yeah, I mean, he couldn't really, could he? Because Del is very, sort of loyal to his family. At least that's been established at this point. I couldn't see him just leaving them to fend for themselves.
Perhaps that's why the scene just cuts off with Rodney's thoughtful face, because we don't actually have an answer to that question.
No,
but we do. But we do see like a very stark difference again between the second time around and this episode, because this episode is not about Rodney and Grandad's reaction. This is about the actual relationship. And I think we mentioned that we wanted to see Del and Pauline break up in the second time around.
Yes, we did.
This time, we're only seeing the relationship as the highlight of the episode. We're not seeing Rodney and Grandad's moaning and protesting and making up lies to break them up. They just basically look sad about it.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because you just reminded me, because I have a note about their reaction to the engagement when Del says, like, oh, how do you feel about Heather becoming your sister-in-law? And when Del announces his engagement, or should I say second engagement to Pauline, they don't react because they were expecting it, because Del is like this. But for some reason, they both sort of look shocked that Del's saying he's going to ask Heather to marry him. And it's like, well, how would you not see this coming with Del's history? Doesn't he get engaged to like every single person? And this is like people sometimes that he's only known for a couple of weeks. He gets engaged
6 weeks is ages for Adele, isn't it?
Yeah, and they've clearly been getting on really well, and she's got a kid and everything. So it's a bit strange that they look so surprised when Del mentions all this.
Because maybe we're trying to paint this very sort of serious side to this episode, because John Sullivan's trying to take it down a little bit more of a. Some people have mentioned drama, kind of comedy, rather than just comedy.
Yeah, it is.
So instead of having it all be like jokes about how many times Del's been engaged, this time we're a little bit more serious. And at this point, the audience could definitely have been led to believe that they actually are going to get engaged. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, if you've got nothing else, we'll move to the Indian restaurant.
Yep.
So it's a romantic dinner. We see Del and Heather together at the table, and Del orders a bunch of food. He has a funny line here where he asks for Uncle Ben's rice.
Yes, which rice would you like?
Have you got any Uncle Ben's?
So just in case you're wondering, because we'll mention it again, but this is the same waiter that appears in Healthy Competition.
Oh,
Tony.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Same restaurant, same table, maybe. Same waiter.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, so Heather notes, after Del does the order, Heather notes that he's pushing the boat out a little bit and asks if he's celebrating. That, to me, was my first moment of detachment from Heather. Because it's almost like she's like...
she acts very naive about everything, and it's like, oh, no, stop doing that. Yeah,
and I think we've all been in that position where we notice a detachment or a distance from the person that we thought we were on the same page as. This is her first line where she is detaching. So she's acting as if she doesn't know that it's a special occasion. And of course, Del would take somebody to a curry house for a special occasion. This is very Del. So we get into the crux of it. He presents the ring. We immediately can see that she's not as over the moon as she should be. So this scene is going in a different direction than perhaps we thought of the audience. So quickly we get to the main point of it. Heather says,
It's Vic.
Oh, is your nose blocked up?
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good tension breaker.
Gotta put this line in here, yeah, a little tension breaker. But no, she means Vic, her husband. He's contacted her and he wants her and Darren back. And all I wrote here is this scene is upsetting. Del tells Heather that she shouldn't believe Vic, and he sounds to be like Del's old man. Del's obviously panicked and sad. He's not just worrying about Heather, but about Darren. And you can see Heather's clearly already decided. She tells Del that she still loves Vic, and then Del asks Heather if she loves him.
I love you, Del. But not in that way. I feel for you the way someone would feel for a...
Goldfish or a gerbil?
No. Like a brother. I feel for you the way you feel for Rodney.
Oh, I thought you liked me.
Oh, it pisses me off so much.
So this is pretty bad, yeah. She's being honest now, but it does, it seems she's been leading him on. He concedes and he actually just blames himself and says that he didn't make it clear enough and that he's not a poet. And that he tries to say things, but they come out Wally-ish. My personal feelings on this, and then we'll go on to yours, is that he doesn't need to say everything the way that maybe the words are unnecessary. I mean, I feel like his actions have spoken.
There's no talking in the montage, and I think it comes across very clearly how he feels about her.
It's not just, it isn't just words. The fact that he's been there, he's looked after Darren, he's been in contact. He hasn't been distant. He's been there for her and stuff. But Heather already has a leaving date planned. So it basically just comes down to the fact that she hasn't told him yet. And this, she's still going on this date with him at Christmas. I find this scene really sad, especially when she asks if he'll come around and say goodbye to Darren and he says no. And that clearly shows that he's so hurt.
Yeah.
And then she just bails on dinner and Del's left alone.
Yeah.
So... yeah, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm mad.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll just mention something, I guess a trivia thing. So this is, I believe, to be the first mention of Abdul from
Yeah, right, Abdul.
where he says he got the ring from, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, Abdul is introduced here, obviously in passing, but we do actually get to meet Abdul later on. And Abdul's mentioned a couple of other times, I think, in the series as well. Now this, first of all, I put, what the fuck was she talking to him about the type of diamonds she likes?
See, remember what you said, that you liked solitaire diamonds?
They've had a conversation about the type of diamonds she likes, and she didn't think that he might be angling to propose. What the fuck? That's the first thing I wrote. Sorry, this makes me so mad.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just feel very angry with Heather. She hurt Del, and I love Del. So yeah, when she says not in that way like a brother, that is just, I just put giant like question marks or like a big line like, what the hell is this? I just put, she totally led him on. When Del says,
What else could I have done?
I don't know. A sign or something.
a literal sign in the van that says
Ugh.
Heather and Del together. That's a sign, an actual sign that says I want to be with you. And I also put introducing her son to someone in that way and then taking him away is also really cruel.
Yeah, I agree.
She clearly, just from the montage, which is the only time we see Darren and Del together. Well, no, we see it outside as well playing football. Clearly, he has been introduced as a father figure, as someone that Del can look at as a father. And it's just, she's a terrible mother doing that to her son as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Introducing him to someone like that. Because Del is obviously a great dad. He seems like a better father to Darren than he ever does to Damien in later episodes, actually. But yeah.
No, he's a good father to Damien, I think.
He is, but we don't ever see him like playing with Damien in the same way that we see him, like, you know, it's not sort of romanticized like it is in this episode when we see him with Damien in later episodes. He's more like a mate to Damien, I think. Also, I find it, the line at the end where he says,
Normally I'd let you keep it, but I've only got it on a week's approval.
You'd let her keep it? I mean, surely this cost you quite a lot of money. It's diamond.
Well, I don't think it does, because it's hinted at that it's not that valuable, because he's like, I'll get her a cluster of solitaire, so a cluster wouldn't be very valuable. But also, Del's bought tons of engagement rings over the years, and in Rock and Chips, it kind of hints that he bought like 5 at once, so that he's going to go and propose to like 5 different women. So I wouldn't necessarily assume that the ring is that valuable.
But even so, I just think it's very weird to propose to someone if they reject you, you just let them keep the ring. That seems very strange to me.
Right, that is weird in this day and age,
So yeah, that's all I had to say. But yes, I really don't like Heather at all.
Yeah, I do think that it's very interestingly written to portray Heather in such a nice way. And also, like, even Rosalind Lloyd saying the display of their relationship development, their love. But it isn't love. Like,
she's using him.
She says she doesn't love him and that she sees him as a brother, but like, you know,
a brother she kisses, apparently.
Yeah, I do think it's an odd choice that we said this, because like I think it might have been better. No, I'm not criticizing John Sullivan's right, and I'm just trying to think, would it have been better if she said she does love him, but she, like, just the way that like when Janice breaks up with Chandler and Friends and goes back to her ex-husband, you have to give the marriage and the child and the father a chance before you give the other relationship a chance, perhaps. I mean, I don't know how I would feel in this position, but she could have just said she loved Elle, but it was a fantasy and she has to go back to reality and give her real marriage a try. I don't know.
I think that this is something that calls back to what she said in that first scene when she was talking about, you know, her ex-husband went on the couch when Del sort of, you know, kind of got a bit of a spook and got up. I think Del realised in that moment that she still loved her husband, but I think he pushed it away, not wanting to believe it because he liked her.
Yeah.
And I think we're all a bit guilty of doing something like that, like ignoring something that's staring us in the face, even though because of our feelings are so strong and we think, you know, maybe if we ignore it, it'll just go away.
Sure.
But it never does, obviously, and it always comes back to bite you.
But I think another very important point to highlight here is the way that Del compares Vic to his dad, his old man, bailing out, leaving the kid, because Del is clearly not like his dad. We haven't met his dad at this point, but Del is very determined to be a good father and a good husband, and he doesn't want to be like his dad. So we get that.
Del doesn't want to abandon anyone, not just the women that he dates.
No,
he doesn't want to abandon his
good family man,
anything.
Yeah. I mean, he's that's a good point to hammer home at this point. We're at the end of the second series, and we're seeing already the character of Del is developing a lot. Just like in that review, it said we see a lot of early signs of Del's character development here that have been very consistent throughout the whole of series 1 and 2 of him being a good family man.
Yes.
So yeah, if nothing else, we'll just move on to this sad little somber ending scene.
Yeah, sure.
So it was deliberately designed to be sad. Obviously, we've got the carol singing, so that's the connection to Christmas. Del comes out looking sad, and he hears some carol singers. This was actually the Fred Tomlinson singers, who were also featured in Monty Python's Flying Circus. So nice little thing. The music is sad and apt at first, but then because they're singing Silent Night, so Del's all poignant. But just when he's feeling all somber, they break into "We Wish You a Merry Christmas," which is very funny. So kind of,
that was the part I did used to find funny as a kid.
Yeah, that's a really funny little moment because it kind of spoils the ambiance for Del. So we see Del approach the leader of the group and gives him £20. And then the leader starts singing Old Shep. So nice little reference back to the beginning. Del smiles poignantly, gets in the van and drives away. And we cut to the Christmassy themed credits, which... there you go. Got a couple of hints of Christmas at the end there. This was on the...
I was going to say right at the end, yes.
What did we say? Really. Aired on the 30th of December, right? So it's like a couple days after.
So it's in the between Christmas and New Year's period, which is the Christmas week. I always think of that as Christmas week. So.
Yeah, because didn't Christmas Crackers air on the 28th?
Yeah, I think it did.
So this is like the night before New Year's Eve. So a little bit more in the middle of that little Christmas week. But wait a minute, let me scroll back. When was the... Christmas trees thing aired?
Well, let me just, while you're looking at that, let me just mention, I think it's quite funny that Del pays the money to sing Old Shep and literally they just start singing it and he drives off. He doesn't even stay to listen to it.
Yeah. Well, that's just like switching the jukebox and then leaving the pub, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, but if I paid 20 quid for a song on the jukebox, I'd want to listen to it, you know? It's just a bit, and actually I personally don't think, because obviously the callback to Old Shep from the beginning is meant to be kind of funny. I just don't feel it really lands that well. I have very sort of mixed feelings about the end of this episode. I don't feel like it's meant to sort of end on a funny note by the fact he has to sing Old Shep, but I don't get that comedy. It just doesn't it's not funny to me, I guess, is what I'd say, because I'm already still thinking about what Del's just gone through. And I just don't want to laugh, you know.
I think I agree. I mean, it's probably hits for different people, doesn't it? It's just that kicking in of the singer singing like "When I was," that's the funny part. But like, I agree. I mean, I just looked back. It was the 27th. So the 27th we got Christmas trees, and then the 30th. So it's spread out nicely throughout the Christmas holiday.
I used to love Christmas TV when I was a kid. It was brilliant.
Exactly. That's the thing. I mean, now we look back and it seems like a dated thing, doesn't it, to sit in front of your Radio Times lineup and watch TV. But honestly, in those days, like what aired at Christmas was very important to you because there was only those 4 channels and you just wanted to watch what was on and see all your favorite comedies Christmasized and stuff. Like, that's not a word, but yeah.
And Christmasized, but yes, I get what you mean.
That sounds like something killed at Christmas.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was it for my breakdown. Did you have any last notes?
No, that's it. That's everything.
All right, let's move on to the awards.
And guess what? He's only one.
Okay, so as always, we have 3 awards to announce this week, and we're going to start with our Plonker of the Week.
I don't believe it. What a plonker. What a plonker.
So for Plonker of the Week, we each nominate a plonker, and we discuss and decide who wins. So
who is your plonker and why is it Heather?
Heather is the plonker. Of course it's Heather. Who else could it be? I love that I am a plonker this week. So Heather is a plonker this week.
Yeah.
And I just put because she totally led Del on, and how I'm sorry, I'm swearing a lot in this episode because I'm mad at her. I'll just say, how on earth did she not see that he liked her like that? And why was she kissing him and telling him about diamonds and applying for council flats? That's what I put.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like at this point, I would have to believe that that Heather was based on someone that led John Sullivan on in his youth. Because
yes, quite possibly.
Yeah, we are like painted a picture that like, I mean, I'm not going to say all women, but at this point, we haven't had women represented very well in the show. And this,
no, they haven't been the best characters.
But I mean,
like in the show.
Men and women can do what Heather did. This is not a woman thing, but just to show up and be all into it and then pull away at the last second after it got really serious, plus showing very strong signs like of introducing your kid and stuff. Without a doubt, Heather is the plonker of the week.
Mind the step.
Congratulations, you awful mother. Okay, so now, dude, you have awarded the best line, is that right? So what's the best line of this episode in your opinion?
Yeah, it was tough. I couldn't think of very many standout lines, but in the end, the one that made me laugh the most was...
Up until I was 4, I thought you was twins.
Yeah, or honourable mention for the Vic line, like with the, what, is your nose stuffed up?
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, there aren't that many like super memorable lines in this episode, so I'm going to go with either one of those 2. You can choose one if you want.
No, sorry, I'll put both of them in, that's fine.
Okay.
Now, you've left me with an impossible task here to choose the best moment.
I don't even have a suggestion for this. What is the best moment?
So I had to put the bit that I like the best, and that's the montage.
Yeah,
I think the montage is the most memorable thing in the whole episode. I think it's, something that I think it's one of the most memorable things because of the song, to be honest, more than anything else. But I do think that the montage is a really nice, like, little feel good, thing in the episode. And a lot of the episode is not very feel good. So,
agreed.
Yeah, I would say that's the best moment of the episode is the montage.
Yeah. Let's put that then. The montage is the best moment. Any honorable mentions? I didn't even put a note for the best moment.
No, I just put it. I said it's the hardest ever because I don't rate any moment as the best in this episode.
Well, I think this is why people, fans of the show, don't talk about these episodes as much because we don't have Adele falling over in the bar or a coach blowing up. We just have which is fine. We don't need those things always in every episode. But this is why they don't stand out and they don't get replayed because that's what people honestly like the most is the big memorable moment.
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, it's crazy to me that an episode like Strained Relations would be considered more funny than this episode.
Yeah.
To me. And it's like that deals with way heavier subject matter, but it's still a funnier episode than this. And when I'm watching a comedy, it doesn't have to be funny all the time. Of course, I'm okay with the mixture of drama, but there has to be some funny moments. And I just don't feel like this episode really has any, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it was a choice that John Sullivan made. And again, let's just use all these early Christmas specials as he was experimenting with the format and the style. But he definitely pulled away from the very serious episodes, perhaps like this. So
okay, so if there's nothing else, drink up, we're leaving.
So that about wraps it up for this week. Join us next week when we'll be finishing up Series 2 with our series wrap episode. And I can't believe we're already this far through. Until then.
Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehookeystreetpodcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces. Bonjour.